Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Rare Agent, where we peel back the curtain on all things real estate. Today, we have on the one and only Tom Storey of the Storey Team. Tom is in the 1% of all realtors. He is not only a realtor, he is a team leader, podcaster, YouTuber, public speaker, boot camper, all of the above. Thank you so much.
Dad.
Okay, congratulations. Amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
We're
so according to the keychain, best dad. Let's just add that in.
For my first Father's Day, my 1-year-old somehow put together a keychain that spelled best dad. I can't. If I didn't see him do it, it just showed up, and I take it around proudly.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Well, we are so excited to get into everything with you today. I know that Christina is going to lead the way with her realtor-focused questions because we want to make sure that we get in all of those nuggets for our listeners today.
Everybody listens to your podcast that's in the real estate world, and maybe we'll pull back the curtain on who you are and how you became Tom Storey.
Sure.
So how many years have you been selling real estate?
This 9.5 right now. So coming up on 10, which is crazy.
I know
that I've been doing it that long. Yeah,
I feel like I've known you that long through the
I think
industry.
we may have known each other most of that time.
Yeah, it's really cool. I always say, "Oh, you know, yeah, we've done deals."
She casually name drops you here and there.
Oh yeah, we're biffs. What did you do before selling real estate?
So my story is kind of funny. When I was 18, I had this weird obsession with real estate agents. Like I would just kind of watch them from afar, but then I remember thinking like, people don't move that often though, so that would be a tough gig. Like, you know, I didn't really know anything about the industry, but I wanted to get my license. Didn't, which was good when I was 18. I didn't get my license, went to university, went to Guelph, got my degree in sociology, which I have never used for anything. But I was so certain. So one summer what happened is I worked for my uncle and he had this business and you'd go around to people's houses and hang these big screen TVs. This is when the TVs were much heavier than they were now. And I would work with him in the summers. And one of the houses we did was a real estate broker. And normally these houses, like people that would use the service, like they were nice houses. And I would always like try to figure out what the homeowner did. Just my mind was like, okay, how do I get to this?
For sure.
And this one guy was like, oh, I own a Remax office or something. And the wheels started turning. I was like, okay, interesting. And then my mom was in sales, but not in real estate sales at the time. She worked for Pampered Chef, which was like a kitchen Tupperware. They would come to your house and do parties.
Yeah.
And she did really well at it. And I kind of watched her grow that business. So 4th year of university, I was just like, screw it. I'm going to start taking my license as I'm finishing up my exams. Graduated and went right into it. So I started at 22. So I actually didn't have like a real job before this. I went right into it.
I couldn't imagine having a real job at being like, I was 24 and now it's something that is like, I don't know. I would love working for myself and I love being an entrepreneur. So it's like in your blood from young.
Yeah.
So how many agents? So you have a team?
Yes.
How many people are on your team?
So 5 selling agents, plus me, full-time administrator. And right now we have a second administrator that's like summer intern, but we might make that position permanent.
Oh, and what are you offloading to that person?
Basically, he's the runner.
Okay.
Love that.
All the things that need
runners.
to get done, lock boxes, signs, anything, dropping off mailers at Canada Post. Now we've started to teach him kind of the back end stuff, how to upload paperwork and that, because my main administrator was getting frankly like overwhelmed with just the volume of it. It's not like we're doing so many sales, but it became a lot from that many agents to one person. So that's been the team structure and I've had that structure for maybe like 4 or 5 years now.
Same people?
We've only had one person ever turn over and they left the industry. So I'm kind of proud of that. And you know what the interesting thing is too? I get a lot of people that ask like, how did you grow the team? How do you find people that want to join the team? And I never actively recruited anybody. It was always, they already watched my content or something and got into the industry and wanted to join because of it. So you're kind of like naturally attracting them, which is the same thing how you naturally attract clients. It's just, you don't really realize who's watching, which was kind of cool.
Amazing.
That's really cool. Was that the same for your intern? I'm curious. Did they find you? Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
He reached out to me, said he watched my videos.
Amazing.
It's actually funny. So, I mean, my mom works for us now. So, you know, she's been with us for 3 years, which is funny too, because when I first started, everyone was like, oh, are your parents in the business?
Yeah.
And I was so adamant. I'm like, no, like I did this myself. I didn't have any, I'm not a Nepo baby.
Yeah.
And what's funny now, my mom works for us, but people probably think I work for her, which I don't care. As long as they call,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me. Morgan was through a connection through my mom, actually. Cam, we knew each other from university.
Yeah, I wanted to know how that relationship started because Cam, I did read your bios and stuff. So Cam kind of handles a lot of the buyers and stuff. So how did you? Well, I've actually heard you explain this story before, but let's tell our viewers, like, how did you guys decide that dynamic?
Yeah, so the structure of the team, Cam was working at CBRE, so he went to Guelph with me, but he went into commercial real estate for the first 2 years, and we would kind of trade notes over coffee or beers when he'd come into Toronto. And I think what he realizes the time involved in the commercial world, if you put in the hours and time, you can do very, very well, but it takes a long time. Where the great thing about residential real estate is there's no ceiling. We also know there's no floor, but you really do get out what you put in. And I had kind of talked to him and be like, man, come join me.
Yeah.
And what we realized pretty quick is like, I love the building of the business, the looking at the game plan, like from bird's eye perspective and how to move the chess pieces. And Cam loves analytics and buyers and running the numbers on like all the boring stuff. He loves it.
Okay.
So there was just this good dynamic is that I was good at creating opportunity, but I didn't want to service all the opportunity. He was great at servicing the opportunity. And also he wasn't from Toronto, so he didn't have the network of people when he first moved here. Now he's built it up. So that's how the team started. And then Morgan came on. Then we got an assistant. So I didn't do it the right way. Like the assistant came on later once we were already overwhelmed and then slowly builded more. And now, but we've had this
built
structure.
the back end for you guys.
Yeah, now the back end is built. And that's like the number one thing. It's like the only reason I can do the podcast and make the content is because I have the team members servicing the clients and someone running the back end.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
I have to ask, because I think our generation, our parents are reaching retirement. We've maybe thought about those dynamics of having your parents work with you. How is that?
It's interesting. I mean, honestly, my mom's done such a great job. And to be clear, she's Heather at work.
Love that.
Right? It's not mom.
It's
been good. Like at the beginning, I was a little bit worried, to be honest, because she was coming into a situation that we had already built it out. We had the culture, and I didn't want the other agents to think that she would have an advantage on getting the better opportunities because she's my mom. But she puts her head down and does her work, and we keep it very business at the office. And because a lot of the agents are out showing properties all the time, it's not like she's sitting beside me all day long, right? Like we're focusing on different things and we connect on business. And then when it's personal, it's personal. We try it's not perfect,
for sure,
but it's been good.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
My mom always says like, "Oh, I'll be your administrator." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, Mom. I don't know."
I always wonder how they would take the critiques. If you have feedback, how that goes. That's
I don't like it that way.
I try to have my assistant be the one that talks to the agents unless it comes back to me.
Okay.
So I try not to be the one that's giving the critiques. Or like when we have our like quarterly meetings with the agency, how they're doing, my assistant will be there with me asking the questions. So it's not like I'm the bad guy. It's the team would like to know what's going on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned, I'm sorry to jump
That's
in there.
okay.
You mentioned that a lot of people found you via YouTube and just kind of like who you were. Do you mind getting into how you actually started the YouTube channel and where that went from there?
Yeah. So I got my license at 22 and I was living with my parents still at the time. I was working in an office downtown. I was doing leases. I was surviving on leases. And I remember so many times thinking like how frustrating it was that I felt like on like a servicing the client level, on a market education level, I knew what I was talking about, but people didn't know who I was. So I started thinking at that moment, it was like I was, City Place, King West, Fort York condos. Like, how do I get the owner of one of these condos to know who I am? So I started looking into options. Okay, you could do open houses for other people. You could be seen that way. You could start sending flyers, but I couldn't afford what that would have cost. And I was like, okay, well, the one thing that I can do, I think, is I can talk in front of a camera. So I'm going to start making monthly updates for this community and just put them out there. But this wasn't even on YouTube at the time. It was just on whatever, like I would put it on Facebook. I would put it on Instagram when it first when videos were allowed, which we forget, like that wasn't a thing for a long time. And then it slowly started to build. And then all the people I did leases for, I would send them these video updates every month on the market. And it was our touch point to stay in touch. And now they've all come back and bought and transacted so many times. And my whole thing, like my favorite saying is visibility beats ability. It doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if nobody knows. Because I think there's a real estate agent out there right now that on servicing the client, on understanding of the market, on paperwork is like an A+, but they're doing D-level results because no one knows who they are. And it's not even being the best at what you do, although that should be the goal. You should know market knowledge-wise. It's being the best at being chosen. And so that's what led to the videos. And then how YouTube got involved was I was making these videos and my goal was like, I sent them to the clients and I want it to show up on my website. When people go to my website, I want my videos to be there. How do you get your videos on your website? You embed a YouTube link. So YouTube was an afterthought. It was a place to get the videos up so I could be sent elsewhere. And then probably at the beginning of the pandemic, I had more time. So I started pumping out more market on YouTube and it started growing. People started commenting and subscribing and people started reaching out and asking me if I would help them buy a place because they watched me on YouTube. I was like, oh my God, like this is a real source of business. And you know, now we've grown the channel where we have just under 10,000 subscribers. Each video will do 3 to 10,000 views depending on how clickbaity it is or what the topic is. And we sold 27 properties last year from people that reached out from YouTube as its own lead source, which is, I keep telling agents, like my new favorite thing is, do you want to feed your ego or do you want to feed your business? If you want to feed your ego, I can show you how to do it on TikTok. I can show you how to do it on Instagram. You want to feed your business? YouTube, long form, teach people, get them to, like, it's crazy when people reach out because they're like excited to talk to you. These aren't your average internet leads. These are like, they know you. They're excited to work with you. And, but it takes time. You got to put a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of effort to build this up. And if you give up, you know, after 3 weeks of a video not doing well, it's never going to work.
So to that point then, because you mentioned TikTok, it's so short, it's such a short form thing to look at. And then you've got YouTube. How long form is your long form? What is the most successful sort of time limit in that production? So
most videos would be 7 to 10 minutes long.
How often?
I post once every 5 days.
Wow. Okay.
But then it breaks down into different buckets of what type of content. So the way you have to look at it is you have to play the algorithm game to get people to show up. So if you start a brand new YouTube channel and you just put out market videos, people will show up, but the numbers will be small. If I take the scary news headline from today and use that as the title and kind of debunk it and show them what's actually going on, way more people will show up and way more people will comment. And you kind of need to play both. Because if someone's watching your content, they like it, but no one else is there, they're kind of nervous to reach out because they're like, why am I the only one here? But as they see it starts to grow, then they're more likely to book an appointment with you, right? So if I were to break it down, you got news headline videos, you got market update videos, you got list videos, 10 best, 10 worst, 5 best, whatever, right? And then you have long form educational guides. So those videos are actually my best. Like I put out a video called, I think it was like everything you need to know about buying a condo in 2023. It's at like 8,000 views. It's 45 minutes long.
Wow.
It's the most boring video of all time, unless you want to buy a condo in Toronto in 2023. That video alone, we've sold 8 properties from this year.
Wow.
You just put that out.
That was in February, maybe.
Oh, I saw it on YouTube. I was like, oh, okay. Like, but I was not expecting you to say that number. I felt like it just came out last week.
No,
That's
well,
crazy.
we've been now promoting in the back end, but
That's amazing.
But it's because if someone's willing to sit there and watch you talk about a topic in depth for that long, you've earned their trust.
Absolutely.
And I've had people that are working with other agents that find my like long form content because again, those videos typically won't perform very well, but they will perform the best for getting people to actually reach out to you. Because you're winning them over. And people will be like, hey, I started working with someone else, but I've realized pretty quick, they didn't tell me any of this stuff. Are you taking on clients? Like, it's funny how they prep. They're like, are you okay if we work with you? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And do you have, so you keep mentioning about how one performs over another. Is it all organic or is there any paid SEO behind the scenes?
So no, 99% of it is all organic.
Wow.
I've never paid for anything. only recently with that specific video, that's maybe why you saw it, is it's not Google ads anymore. It's built into YouTube.
Okay.
There's a promotions tab, and you can kind of boost a video based on the viewers that already watched it. And because that was performing so well, I put a few $100s behind it to test it, and it's been working.
Interesting.
But
not?
on the other ones, it's all organic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so because you obviously are, so knowledgeable in all of the market and teaching everybody, has YouTube been where news media has found you? Because you've also been featured on all kinds of different news channels just describing the status of the market and all of that stuff, which brings excellent PR to you. Are they finding you, or are you finding them? How is that happening?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. The answer is that YouTube was the reason why it happened, but it didn't happen directly from that.
Okay.
So I started making the videos that I thought no one was watching, but the brokerage I work for has a PR department, and they were watching. And they had a lot of, maybe let's call them more established or older agents that would go on, but they weren't great on camera. So they reached out and said, "Hey, would you be interested in ever doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." But they started me on, like, I would do news interviews, but it was for like newspapers or online. It wasn't my face talking, and those were easy. And what happened was January 1st, 2018, when the stress test came in, CP24, this day after New Year's, CP24 called me, and they're like, "Do you want to come do live news?
Oh, gosh.
Sit at the desk." My first one ever.
Were you sober?
Well, yes, kind of. And I was just thinking, like, how many people were hungover that said no, that they got to me on the list. But I said yes, and I went on there, and I took it seriously, and it went really well.
Oh, that's
And then they kept inviting me back, and so now the PR department that first got me into it doesn't actually give me many opportunities, but I've got on the roster for all these news networks, and they're now calling me, and it's working. It's crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Do you get deals from it?
not as many as you'd think.
Okay.
But
Most
it
of
builds
it's
authority, right?
Yeah, most of it. So it builds authority with the clients you already had. The real estate industry thinks it's cool, right? I have had people, maybe we've done like under 10 deals where they call us and say, "I saw you talking on CTV. Can you come help us do this?" But not as many as you'd think.
Have you been asked to go on hot property?
On hot property?
Yeah.
No. I think Al's got that
Locked in.
got that locked down. Yeah.
Imagine. They're like,
I
"Yeah,
would
we're going to
love-
get this guy out, bring the young buck in."
I'd love to rewind for just a second, because we talk about how great you've done with your YouTube channels and growing that way. So if you're a newer agent and you're looking to get into YouTube and all of that, I know a lot of people stress about, what if they mess up? What if they say the wrong thing? Is my production okay? Is my background okay? What do you recommend for the agent that's thinking, maybe I should do this?
Well, for the first 10 videos, nobody's watching anyways, so it doesn't really matter, is the truth.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to go through it, see what's working, see what's not working. But if I were to build a YouTube channel right now from day one, I would actually focus specifically on those long videos. I would think of 5 topics that are pain points for people. Maybe it's upsizing, downsizing, if you're currently renting, how to get your first property. I'd think of all these things, and I would write down, break it into like 5 different categories. I would make really long videos on all those things, because you can cut those all up and make them short form as well. And then I would promote them as much as possible to everybody, because those are how you build trust. And then built into that, I would put out, whatever the stupid news headline is of the week. 35% of Canadians are worried about paying their mortgage. That's going to be my other video that grows the channel surrounded by the actual valuable stuff. That's what I would do. And just recognizing that, like, anyone that you currently watch or you look up to, whether it's social media, in real estate, in any other industry, they've probably put out a lot of content. They're probably not on video 4 and you're like, this person's crushing it, right? So just recognizing that, I think I put out 350 videos on my YouTube channel. I don't know how many Instagram things we've done. Like, it's been a lot of time and effort, and it wasn't always getting results until one day it did.
Gotcha.
And then it was like, oh my God, this is pretty cool. And people aren't talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So I'm going to move on to a new topic. You have this incredible ability to compartmentalize systems and processes. I've listened to you speak at events and obviously watched your YouTube channels, and it's perfect. You really do package everything so nicely and are able to describe things so well. So we wanted to take this opportunity to ask you if you could create the perfect new agent avatar. What would that new agent look like? So not from necessarily a social media perspective, but just sort of coming into the industry, they're fresh, they're eager, they're hungry. What do their habits look like? What do their lead generation looks like? So on and so forth.
Yep. Okay. So the first thing would be if I could choose what they were doing before, they were in hospitality of some sort. They were customer facing. They were in event planning. They were an airline stewardess. They dealt with people. They were a wedding planner. They dealt with people where it was an emotional situation. So they've already dealt with people that are mad coming this way and knowing how to adapt, right? So I think the first thing is coming from that before. And then the second thing would be the adapting. So we talk about, personality profiles a lot, and we try to figure out what we are, what our clients are. But at the end of the day, if you can't adapt to the other person, it doesn't matter. So the golden rule was like, do as you'd like to, or do to others as you'd like them to do to you. But how about you do to others as they'd like to actually have it happen?
Yeah.
Like take it to the next level. Like just because that's the way you want it to be doesn't mean that's the way that they would want it to be. Then if you look at like, okay, if they started from zero and they were a new agent, in our market, at least in GTA, I'd say you learn very quickly how to run ads on Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji for leases. And you learn all the buildings, and you get to a point that you walk in and the concierge knows you by first name. And you do all these buildings, and you build your database from 0 to 50 to 100 from past clients that have actually worked with you before, right? And then you create the system that stays in touch with these people for all the years moving forward. So, that, and we know what that system is, but it's essentially every month, what can you send them of value? That's not like, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I'm wondering if you know anyone that wants to buy and sell. It's like, hey, here's an update on what the market's doing. Here's free tickets to the home show. Here's what's going on in your area. I just thought you'd like to know. We're doing a micro event next week where we're doing your nails for free and you get to come drink mimosas. Are you interested? Like building that up over time and making sure that when the time comes that they're going to move again, they'll use you. But what you're actually trying to get is that they're going to refer you before that even happens because you've been staying in touch. And like the craziest stat to me is the NAR data that says like, it's something like 80-something% of people said they'd use their realtor again, but only like 20-something% do. And most times because they forget their name.
Oh my God.
It's crazy.
Really?
So it's like, so you got to be able to find opportunity. And if you've recognized, I actually think real estate teams are a great thing that's happened to the industry because there are some agents that are wonderful at servicing opportunity. They're really great, but they're not great at creating it. And then there's agents that are really good at creating it, but can't service all of it. So then you have to recognize as that person, are you good at creating opportunity or are you good at servicing it? And some people are both, but then, and that's how you recognize, okay, that perfect persona. Then do I go it on my own and try to build my own thing? Or do I join up with someone else and go under a team structure because I know I just like this? And I think for them knowing like, what are you trying to build? Like, what's the outcome that you're looking for? Because I could tell you for my team who my perfect agent would be, but that doesn't necessarily
Do you
mean,
want to share that on this podcast?
Yeah. I mean, it's a go-getter.
Yeah.
It's someone that's willing to take on some of the crap stuff, knowing that more is coming down the line, having patience, knowing that the systems work and looking at proof from other people, having consistency of actually doing it. And without fail, whether it's an agent that just starts or an agent running a 7-figure team, the only difference to me is the execution. I see it time and time again. Like, I would be in these mastermind calls with people that you could only be in it if you did over 2 million GCI. These are heavy. I was like the minnow in that group, like the little fish just being like, I wonder if they realize I stuck in here. And we talk about every week, like here's an idea. And then the next week, every single person had to implement it. Every single one. So I think that would be it. Like the people that have ideas and just making sure that like it really is simple. And it's funny when you're saying like I do a good job at breaking things down. It's because I keep them simple for myself because I don't want to overcomplicate it. And I think other people then can learn from what I'm trying to talk about because I keep it simple. But yeah, the perfect agent profile, go-getter, willing to think about it long-term and having patience because the systems work. I can prove the systems work to anybody, but it's some people, they give up after 8 months.
What does the perfect day look like? Just to kind of wrap that all up, if someone was to start out on Monday, what does that look like?
So on Sunday, they would have already planned out their week. Like Sunday evening, they would have planned out the week, and you'd look at your week and you'd block off the spots of the times that you'd like to show properties or deal with offers. It's never perfect. And then you go into the week and you already would know going into the week, how many appointments do I have to set, which means with a buyer, a seller that's probably going to do something in the next 120 days, not just a random coffee with a past friend's, not an appointment, right? Like you got to be specific on it. How many of those do you have to book per week to get to the point in which you're going to hit your goals? And you can figure out those numbers by just breaking it down, how many transactions you want to do versus how many weeks in the year. Like you can figure out what that is. So you focus on appointments first, and all the appointment setting is usually done in the morning. And then you do the appointments in the afternoon or the evening, because that's when most people are available.
Got it.
And then so appointments are first, then it would be content creation or lead generation or whatever you want to look at. When are you going to do that? And at least for me, like I know if that's not done by 10 a.m., it's not happening, because then the day takes over. And you can have your perfect day, but then shit hits the fan like 3 out of 5 days of the week anyways. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the morning, you focus on the appointments. In the afternoon, you do the appointments, and you just focus on appointments. That's it. That's the only thing. If you have appointments, great. You can take off the rest of the day. If you don't, you got to do the things that get the appointments.
One tidbit that I don't think a lot of people know is that you've been coached your entire career.
Yeah.
So is that something that you would encourage somebody who is fresh new in the business, or is that just?
Yeah. I mean, if they're willing to listen.
I felt when I started coaching, I wasn't coached for a while, but I was ready for it. And then once I found my coach, I was like, okay, I'm never letting you, like, I'm never going to give up. I just like having that, and being in part of the environment is awesome.
There's a few ways I would look at it, because there's a lot of like amazing coaching companies out there.
For sure.
So first of all, the coaching calls are one thing. I think it gives you that little jump in your business every 2 weeks and makes you excited. And like I had one this morning. I have to fill out a sheet of exactly where I am at with my goal. I got to write it down. What did I do? What did I not do? And it makes me go like, okay, wow. If I didn't have that goal or being accountable to them, I wouldn't have done that.
For sure.
The second thing is it's basically like taking your real estate career and flying business class, because all the other people you're dealing with, they paid to be there. They paid the higher price to be there, and they're probably taking it seriously. So you're having better conversations.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then the network, like my coaching fee, I don't know, like the referrals you get from the network is like,
in the last couple
I would
of years,
pay them way more.
Maybe, but I have like through the referrals, I don't pay for coaching.
Yeah. And it's a business expense in the first place.
Absolutely.
So
probably.
I would highly recommend it for people that are willing to listen. But if you think, again, like anything, if you think at 3 months into coaching, you're good and you can stop now, and it's not going to work.
No. Yeah. I think whenever you invest in your business, that you have to give it time. You can't just expect fast results. And with coaching, I think it took me about a year to really say, not it was working, but to really say, okay, like I can see it. I can see that I drank the Kool-Aid, whatever you want to call it. I'm ready. Like, and going to the events and stuff like that also really helps as well.
Well, the way you feel coming out of a real estate conference, you're like super excited, and then it goes away pretty quick. So I'd say like coaching is a little shot of that every 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
So you don't fall off. You keep getting a little shot, and it feels good. And understanding that there is a big difference between coaching and training. Like the stuff that we do with the boot camps, that's training.
Yeah.
I don't one-on-one coach. Like I'm not interested in that. I like to take an idea and go in depth on it, where coaching is a whole different conversation. So you can do training programs and still be coached, and they're not always going to overlap, which I think is interesting.
So I have to ask, because you did mention you've been with the same coaching company, coach, et cetera, throughout this period of time. Have you found that they've evolved with you? Have you changed coaches? Has it grown? How has it been able to evolve as your business evolves?
I haven't changed coaches. So I've had the same guy for like 7 years, which is cool. At this point, it's just like a chat. But I like it. I like going through ideas and big picture stuff. And I have found like we coach with Richard Robbins, and he has adapted. I've seen it. Every year, what they're talking about slightly changes, because he knows. And what's interesting is he has the access to the top people in the industry anyways, and he's finding out from them what are they doing right now, and then kind of re-sharing that information where it has kind of updated with what's going on in the industry. Yeah, definitely.
Their
That's awesome.
fundamentals stay the same, but their value adds change, and how they want to keep us engaged also changes all the time, which is really nice as well.
Because really, at the end of the day, what's changed in real estate in 30 years? The tools. But the goal hasn't. As a real estate agent, you should wake up every day and try to book a meeting with a buyer or a seller. Like that's literally everything we do leads to that moment. But there's just so much noise these days with social media and all this other stuff. And if someone can prove to me, I've said this many times, you can prove to me that TikTok got you 25 sales in 12 months, I'll dance tomorrow. I'll do it 100%. No one can prove to me.
No one has proved it yet. Not even in the States.
Maybe like Glenda Baker proved it, but she's an anomaly. She's the 0.1%. And she caught the wave of early COVID TikTok where everyone was on it and had a great person and never really did the numbers thing. She was, but I haven't seen it, but I've seen it on YouTube.
Business over marketing, hands down, every day, all day.
Yeah. But if you don't have the business, then you have to do the marketing to get the business, right? Like I talked about before, the visibility and the ability. Visibility is the marketing. And then the ability is when you get the chance to sit down at the kitchen table to know what you're actually talking about. But it doesn't matter if you know what you're talking about if you don't get any chances to sit at the kitchen table.
For sure.
So when you do go ahead and get the business.
Speaking of the kitchen table, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about your listing presentations. We know that this is something you've really honed your skills. You are an expert. We've seen you do a sample listing presentation at the Buzz conference and all that good stuff. And like, I was sold, sell my house all day. So first and foremost, before we get into what you should do, can you give us maybe like 5 big mistakes that you find agents are making going into their listing presentations?
Sure. Okay. So number 1, they're not mentally prepared. They just go in like it's anything else and don't think about the weight or the gravity of that moment for the person on the other side. I think number 2, they haven't even convinced themselves that they're a good person to hire, right? They don't even believe it. If you don't believe it in yourself, no, you're not gonna, people on the other side of the table aren't going to believe it. Number 3 would be assuming that if you sold them that property, it's just a guarantee that you're getting the opportunity again. Trust me, five years have gone by since you sold in that place and you didn't stay in touch like you should have. They've talked to other real estate agents.
Absolutely.
And been inundated with whoever the local specialist is. And they think they might have to go with the other person. And if you just walk in there and just kind of say, okay, let's get started. It's like, that's not going to work. Number 4 would be, I can't believe how many agents go in without a formal presentation. Like it shocks me. And very successful agents just go in and they're like, okay, like.
They just wing it.
Yeah, they wing it. Or they just talk through it. We're like, I think you got to have that. And then number 5 would be, keeping with the presentation, is like, you got to be so good at it. You got to know every question that's coming. And most agents are just scared when they get questions back at them. But like, that's normal. I would ask the same question if I was a seller. Like, well, why do you charge more than this other person? And typically the response is like, well, yeah, because I'm better than the other person. It's like, okay, what does that mean to me as a seller? Show me why I should go with you, and not being prepared or kind of turtling when it doesn't go great. Because you're not prepared. So those to me would be the 5 big things walking in. Like everything we do in our business, we talked about like the appointment setting, everything we do, every coaching, every whatever leads to this moment, right? Everything we've done, everything you've spent money on leads to this moment, and you show up at that moment and you're not fully prepared. I don't understand.
Absolutely.
And it's a presentation. It's no different than, at the Buzz, I got to do that presentation like 500 people, or I get to do it one-on-one. It's the same thing. So I think real estate agents, the one thing that they lack on the listing side is they're not very good at presenting. And you got to practice that. And it doesn't just happen by practicing with your coworkers. You got to also do
listings
a lot of times. And like we had one recently where my team member was meeting with someone and she's like, listen, he's only paying 4%. It's not going to happen. I don't even know if you want to meet with him because we're pretty strict on what we charge. And said, well, let's go book the meeting. And I just broke down the commission and how it works and where it's going and what do we pay for. I said, do you have any questions? He's like, nope. And it was 5%.
Amazing.
But it's because I explained it to them. He had no issue once I explained how it all works. But the perceived issue is different. I think most agents are like, okay, fine. It's okay. Like, let's just do this. Yeah, I want the listing.
For sure.
It's like you're doing yourself and your client probably a disservice.
You're making so much less money too, because then who knows what else will get tacked onto that bill. Like, oh yeah, I'll take care of that, or I'll pay for that if you're already giving up your commission. Who knows?
Sure.
And I get it. I get why agents at the beginning of their career do it. And I did it too at the beginning.
They're
And
just so happy to be getting business.
Well, that's it. But I can tell you, even to this day, there's a guy that I've probably done his network 14 transactions. But the first one I took a cut on commission, and it has burned me for 8 years.
No way.
Because everyone moving forward is like, well, are you going to, I'm like, no. And at this point, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You've earned
But
the
you
right.
set the precedent for
Yeah.
sure. So those were the major 5 don'ts in the listing presentation. We obviously can't have you go through the whole thing. We've
Sure.
seen you do it. It takes an extensive amount of time. But if you could give us your favorite key points that you would ask other realtors to focus on, practice,
Yep.
what you think's really helped you nail it down, what would those be?
So the break your presentation into, like, I have 5 main things I talk about. It's what's going on in the market, why us, the marketing plan for your property, what's your property worth, and what do we charge? Those are the 5 things any seller actually wants the answer to make a decision. So I just focus on those 5 things, and then the presentation is built out in a way that I answer those 5 questions, basically, right? The next thing would be the objection handling. And I talked about this at the Buzz. This is not my idea. I got this from Rob Vivian from actually a boot camp I did in my office 8 years ago. And it's called Repeat, Approve, and Build a Bridge. So it's basically people are going to have feedback or objections on what you're talking about. You just have to know how to answer it, right? Like the price, like Richard's thing is the price is only an issue in the absence of value. If you show up with no value, they're not going to choose you. You show up with value, they're going to be like, okay, fine. This makes sense. So, the easiest one is, Tom, thanks. This all looks great. But another agent we met with said that they would do it for less, whatever that less is, right? So the initial reaction is you go, well, that agent's part-time. They don't know what they're doing. You want to say things about the other person. Don't. That's a huge mistake. Go repeat it so they understood. Okay, I totally understand, why you said that. So another agent was going to do it for less, right? So they're like, okay, he's listening to me. He didn't argue back with me. You've repeated what they said. Then you approve it. You're like, I get it. Is it fair to say that your goal is to sell this for the most amount of money and then get into your next property for the least amount of money and have the most amount of money in your pocket? Or however you want to phrase that. And they go, yeah, exactly. And then they're like, wait, why is he agreeing with me? And then you build the bridge. And building the bridge is showing them your side of things. I go, so do you mind if I share something with you? You had just mentioned that your goal is to get to net the most amount of money out of this property. So we've actually tracked our listings versus the market for the past 10 years. And I know for a fact that we'll get you 5% more than the average agent. And the average agent is typically the ones that are willing to cut their commission because they're not willing to invest into your property. So here's how much I spend on staging. Here's how much. So if your goal is to get you the most amount of money, I know I can do that. And then you just go silent. Because what I find happens is most agents try to keep proving their point. It's like, shut up.
It's true. Agents love to talk.
Just let them respond. And at that point, even if they don't want to agree with you, mentally, you force them to be like, oh, interesting. They heard me, they agreed with me, but now they're sharing their perspective, and that kind of makes sense. And that's it. Like it truly is that simple. And you can go around and around using repeat, approve, build a bridge on everything in life, anything. So that would be my number one thing.
I'm going to use that on my husband.
Literally, do you want to go out for dinner tonight at this place? You're asking me if you want to go out for dinner? Okay, I understand that. Is that because this is your favorite restaurant? Do you mind if I share something with you? We went there last week also. Can we try this place tonight? And they're going to be like, yeah, okay.
Clever.
Advice for all of life.
It's life advice. Yeah.
So I have more of an atmospheric question just to add to that whole listing presentation and this might be silly, but just curious, do you find that your most successful listing presentations, laugh, it's okay. Do they happen in the kitchen? Do they happen in the living room? Are they physical or are they online? Are you bringing your laptop? Do you have a water? Is there a gift?
Yeah. No, good question.
Set the scene for us, Tom.
Okay, so before I even enter the property, there's 3 things that are done.
Okay.
The appointment is confirmed by my assistant and she introduces process herself to understand that this is not just Tom, you're getting a team here, and this is my listing coordinator who's going to reach out beforehand.
Establish it.
We send them, a survey that they fill out. All the information is there, but the property, so I walk in and know everything. That's number one. Number two is we send them the VIP boxes, which has a listing presentation, plus 2 Evian waters, plus our trades and services booklet, plus a little tote bag, plus some sugar-free gummies, just a bunch of fun. That's couriered to their property at least a day or two before the appointment. The third one is that depending on the relationship with the client, I don't always do this, but I will send them this little video going over the comparables we're going to talk about when we meet. Mm-hmm. So I've hit them with all 3. Now, if I'm in competition, the likelihood of someone else doing those 3 things are very, very low. Mm-hmm. Then when I get to the property, it's typically do the tour, walk around, and be interested in the things that they are saying about their property. Take notes if you have to. And then I'll always ask, do you mind if we go sit down at the kitchen table? So kitchen table is where I have most of these. I will always, everything I'm doing online is to get an appointment offline anyways. So I'll always want it to be face-to-face if it can. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then I'll sit down. I'm old school. I actually don't bring an iPad. I don't bring a computer. I have a copy of my presentation for me and a copy for them. And then I'll just go through it. And when I'm talking about things like staging or photos, and there's things that every agent say that clump us all together. What do we all say? We do professional photography. I don't do professional photography. I do magazine-worthy photography. Professional photography is the second level, and iPhone photos are the bottom level. We do magazine-worthy, and here's how our camera guy does it. So you got to show them the difference between you and everybody else. Mm-hmm. And then typically I'll have the booklet. I'll go through with them page by page. And my favorite is like at the end, I go, is there anything I didn't cover? Any questions that you have? And they're always like, no, that was great. Awesome. Like, what's the next steps? Mm-hmm. And also, I don't bring listing paperwork with me. Mm-hmm. Never. Not saying that's good advice. I just don't do it. And that's usually how I start the conversation is I just want you to know today I'm going to go through all the things I would want to know if I were you. I'm not going to ask you to sign anything today. And you can almost see during that moment, their shoulders go from like guarded to like down. And then you can just have a conversation. You've taken away all the, this person's going to ask me to sign something. And then at the end, they're so wowed. They're like, okay, how do we get started? Like, don't worry, I've got it ready in DocuSign. I'll get it sent over.
I have to say, just to speak to you and your ability to crush it, I have listened to you on podcasts. I have seen you at the Buzz. I have done your boot camp.
Yeah.
And the consistency in all of the pieces of your presentation that you have said, so consistent. You do have it down. You have it memorized. You know what you're doing, but it comes natural. So you have really mastered your craft. You don't just talk the talk. Like you have implemented that in your business.
Thank you. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes doing the boot camps or the talks, sometimes I'll talk about something and be like, I used to do this. This is actually a great idea. I should do this again. That's awesome. It keeps me on my toes.
Absolutely.
And the last thing I'll share just about like the social stuff for the videos or whatever is like, yeah, we think we do it because we want to stay in touch with our clients or other agency and maybe refer us business or we'll get more opportunities from it. It makes you better at what you do. Mm-hmm. I'm a better speaker because I practice it so many times. And even when I don't know what I'm going to say next, I normally have a path I can take where people don't notice because I don't have any of my stuff scripted, right? It's always just talking. And if you have to talk on camera, look at a camera lens and say what's going on in your market, you become a better real estate agent and your clients have a better experience because of that.
Yeah, that was one question I wanted to ask. Those 45-minute videos you make, do you just have the ideas or do you have a script already that you've practiced?
For those ones, I will put notes in my notes app.
Got it.
And I'll have bullet points of the different things, subjects I want to talk about. And then the video will just hit each one all the way through. But that is essentially just my buyer presentation.
Got it.
Just without a specific property. And I put one out that's a 30-minute one for how to sell your house, which is essentially my listing presentation without talking about price or commission. So
love that.
It's boring unless you're that type of person. And apparently a lot of those people actually exist.
For sure.
Yeah.
I disagree. I believe the value that you provide is absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
I am blown away by it. The compartmentalization of the systems and processes, you are hands down. Wow. So on that note, can we move along to just a short sort of conversation about the future of real estate? What do these are interesting economic times. what do you feel is going to happen in the marketplace,
Sure.
be it with realtors or with real estate itself?
It's going to be more difficult than it's been before. I think you're going to have to do more work to get the same results. And if you want to do better results, you're going to have to find more opportunities to find leads. So every agent should be focusing on their repeat and referral in their database, but that will get you so far. And then you have to find new lead streams, which is agent referrals. For me, it's been YouTube or direct mail or things like that. So if you want to grow, you need new business, but you not at the expense of not staying in touch with your past business. That needs to happen. You got to add to it. So on the agent perspective, you want to continue to do well. That's what you have to focus on. On the market perspective, I mean, realistically, it's going to be a rocky 2 years. The extended amortizations on the variable rates, I think, is propping up the market right now. That's why we haven't seen any foreclosures or power of sales. That's what's happening. But more interestingly enough, it's in 2 years. If rates are at where they're at today, or people are going to have to renew, can be some people in tough situations, right?
Are you getting those calls right now from people from 2018, 2019?
I'm not, but mostly because they built so much equity in that property that they're fine. So that's typically what's going to happen. But there will be some people in really bad situations. It's going to happen, and we can get so caught up in the doom and gloom and whatever. I'm just going to focus on the people that I can help that need our help. I'll be available to them, and I'll give them the education that they need. And if it's a bad time, the amount of people I talk out of selling that call me from YouTube is like insane. Because I'm like, no, like don't, like it's this bad time to do it, right? So that's on the agent side and the potential market side. I think if you break down, go really macro, what moves the real estate market? Immigration. Our levels of immigration are probably higher than they should be.
Agreed.
We're bringing a lot of people in, and we're not building at the same pace. Canada needs immigration. We have an aging population. We probably don't need 1.2 million people a year. We probably need 500,000 people a year, but that's probably a discussion you could go back and forth with for a long time. Then you look at unemployment rate. Right now, it's about 5%. If unemployment gets to 10%, it's not going to be great. It's going to be a bad thing, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the second pillar. And then the third pillar is interest rates. So interest rates, unemployment, and immigration. If 2 of the 3 pillars are bad, market's bad. If 1 of the 3 pillars are bad, market's okay. So if you look at more recently, it's like, how did the first 5 months of Toronto real estate go up? It doesn't make any sense based on what happened last year, because there was no inventory. That's strictly the reason why. Why was there no inventory? Because people were told the market was bad, or they had a 2.5% fixed rate. They're not going to break that to sell into something else, right? And then if you want to go at like high level stuff, I think there's a good chance, because of the dual agency being taken away in BC, there's a good chance in 10 years, Toronto, with everything the government's doing, buyer's agents could be out of the equation. It could just be listing agent. There's one side of the commission. Like that's what it is in the UK. Like there's a chance with government intervention, any of this could happen. So if I'm a real estate agent, I'm focusing on listings, and I'm focusing on sellers and systems and people in place, that if anything changes in the market, I'm in the position that I can adapt to it. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's possible.
Always good to be prepared.
It's so possible.
So outside of the doom and gloom, just before we escape this whole conversation, oftentimes people say that, economic uncertainty, therein lies the opportunity. So what's the silver lining of all of this? Is there any sort of trend or an opportunity that you think an agent or, a seller could take advantage of here?
Well, in a downwards trending market, upsizing makes a lot of sense. I did that. And the house I bought was down 400 grand from peak, where the house I sold was only down 150 grand from peak, right? So that made sense to me, because I was making that jump. And then when the market does recover, because it will recover, like we can see the 40-year charts, this happens, right? It will be okay. And then what I'm looking at, like I was talking with my team this morning, summer 2023, if you are a buyer in real estate that's going to hold the property for minimum 5 years, you should be excited that the interest rates went up twice, because you're not taking a variable rate. You're taking a 3 to 5 year fixed, get the property you want with less competition. Buy it now, because in 5 years that it's going to look like a good buy.
Absolutely.
It might not look like a good buy in a year from now. I don't know. That's like too close to know what's going to happen. But if you're thinking of buying and holding it for just 2 years, my advice would be don't. Rent. Do not buy unless you're going to hold the property for 5 years. And just realizing that like it's so long term, like we get so caught up on like day to day, week to week of the market. Look at a graph of the last 40 years. We've had major crashes, we've had downturns, but if you hold your properties,
You're going to be fine.
in Toronto, GTA, mathematically, yeah, you'll probably be okay. But don't over leverage yourself.
Yeah, a lot of people are feeling the over leveraging right now. That's new to my career, to be honest. Like in the last 10 years, I haven't really heard a lot
Agreed.
of those stories where like, oh my God, I'm like, I shouldn't have bought that investment, or, like no one's had those.
So it's going to
stories
start
yet.
with secondary properties, right? It's going to start with they're going to come to market because everyone will do everything possible to keep their primary residence.
Absolutely.
We actually interviewed an insolvency trustee, like basically people that are on the brink of bankruptcy, and they go to these people and they try to help them out. And I was like, is real estate the issue here? And he was like, there's actually 3 things that come before real estate. It's mostly failed businesses.
Okay.
They go bankrupt that are personally liable for 40%. Then they hit the personal credit cards at 20-something% and pay the minimums. And then car loans that they buy a car for the business are like terrible interest rates. Usually the house is what saves them. They have to sell the house, but the equity in the house gets them out.
Right.
So it's interesting. Like, but I agree. There are people that got bad advice in the last few years that highly over leveraged that are going to feel the pain.
Yeah.
For sure. I think we're also in an age of social media where now everyone sees what everyone's going through. Whereas I think other difficult economic times that we've been through, it wasn't as much the case. And so a lot of people were in the dark. They didn't really know how bad it was or how it was affecting people. So to switch over to a more fun topic as we wrap up the pod here, we have our rare roundup.
Okay.
So these are just 3 quick questions. First and foremost, what is Tom Storey's favorite GTA neighborhood?
My favorite neighborhood for me. That's tough.
It's a hard one.
Okay, for a house,
Sure.
the beaches.
He has
Okay.
to break it down.
Where do you like to hang out?
Well, I live there now, so all around. If it was a condo, St. Lawrence Market.
Okay.
Like for me, those would be my 2.
Love
St.
that.
Lawrence Market is like the people from King West grew up, matured, and then went over to St. Lawrence Market, and it's quiet.
Yeah.
But everything else is still there, and it's kind of like a hidden little gem. And then I moved to the beaches, so I'm just being biased.
Fair enough.
Can I jump in? I'm so sorry. I know you hate it when I do this, but so to that point, where do you think if somebody wanted to buy a condo 5 years from now, it would appreciate if you were to like pickpocket a neighborhood?
5 years from now? Well, the West End's pretty much built up. And the answer would have been Mimico 5 years ago, but they caught up in price which is crazy that they're like trading at the same. There's
do
like
you
a few.
cross the DVP?
You could cross the DVP. Like the answer probably, but it's probably a 10 to 15 year answer is like Kingston Road. Like really into the future though, but it's got a lot of time for those to be built up. Because if you look at the delta right now in the beaches for being south of Queen, the house price that goes up, it's like maybe as you go further down Kingston Road, there's going to be south of Kingston moving forward, but that's probably 10 to 15 years. Or maybe that the LRT is finally done now. Those areas that are right on Eglinton could do okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
That
you.
would be my guess.
Love it. And then we're all busy realtors on the fly. Do you have a fast food go-to for when you're in the car, on the road, in the hustle mode?
Yeah, it's like it's lame. It's like McDonald's. That's where I go because it's just the safe option.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
classic.
Yeah.
What's your order?
It's just this is embarrassing. It's like in the morning, it would be like a sausage and egg McMuffin.
Okay.
If I'm really hungry and you're like pass out mode, I've shown 8 properties, I'm gonna pass out. It's like a Big Mac.
Nice.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
I like that. And then we always like to ask our guests, what do you think makes an agent rare, unique, special?
I mean, maybe going back to what I said at the beginning, I think adaptability. I think looking at this as a long term, I think it's easy to have a good year in real estate as a real estate agent. It's much more difficult to have a strong 5 years, and it's very rare to have a great decade. So a rare agent would be someone that's expanded their business every year for 5 to 10, 15 years and continues to grow. That to me is rare.
That is
I love
rare.
that.
That is rare for
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you
And
so
not
much,
burnt
Tom.
out.
Yeah, and like enjoy your life.
Yeah.
For sure.
Have
right?
that balance.
Like I don't care how many properties you sell if you wake up every day and you hate your life. Like, do you want to be the real estate agent that sells a property until the day you take your last breath? I don't.
No.
So invest in real estate too. 'Cause that's our retirement.
Absolutely.
You know it. Well, thank you so much. I think we got so much value today. I think our listeners and viewers got so much as well. So we appreciate it. If anyone wants to find you to do your boot camp, to watch your videos, where are they finding you?
Instagram, just the Storey Team, or type my name into Google and you'll find all the stuff. Story with an E.
Beautiful. Well,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much, all
Thank
of
you,
our
thank
listeners
you.
and viewers. If you don't mind leaving us a review, a like, a comment, a star, whatever it is, wherever you're watching. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
See you.